Hey, what's going on there, everybody? This is Malik here representing TeamJVS. Here you guys another movie review. This movie is called We Grown Now. This is starring the amazing Jenna Smada as the role of Dolores. She plays the mother of one of the main characters, as played by Blake Cameron James. It's named Malik. His best friend is played by Guyan Knight Ramirez, named Eric. Malik and Eric are two young men that this takes place in 1992 in the Cabrini Green homes, right before the 1999 changes and supposed reformation of how that's going to look. I'll get to that in a little bit. But the background of this is you have these two friends that everything about them is daring to believe, to dream, to show the world that they exist. I mean, the height of their day is going and trying to see who's the highest jumper, who can jump the highest, who can do the most, working hand in hand. They've known each other since they've been born. Malik's family comes from Mississippi. He lives with his mother, his sister, as well as his grandmother, Anita. Anita is played by Epatha McMurson. And, you know, they made their way from Mississippi to make it to Chicago to try to reform another life. And the background of this film is so elemental. Best way I can kind of put it. I normally don't go off of the story. I normally try to go and break down the dissection of how it's done, how it's edited, how it's filmed, the acting, but the story of this is everything. Much like films that have come this year in like The Nickel Boys or Exhibiting Forgiveness, even The Fire Inside, like these are about, it's about the story more so than anything, even though these are great performances, and I'll get to that as soon as I can. But at this current time, there's different segments of time that happens. The movie starts with Malik and Eric, and they're just daring to dream, and then unfortunately, as time goes on, tragedy happens. And with tragedy, the way that the world reacts to it and the way that they have to live through it and go through it is even worse, because from their outlook and the way that it's filmed, the way it's done, it's like everything is good. Like you couldn't have it any better than what they have. Like they're able to go outside, able to go and have fun. They were able to do what they want to do. And then the restrictions start to come, and then the policing starts to happen, and then life starts to get very bleak and aimless, and hopelessness starts to take root within both of them in different ways. The difference within both of the characters is that one character is daring to dream and has a dream outside of the walls of what they've lived, and then the other one is falling so deeply into hopelessness they don't even know if there's a point to this moving forward. And these are young Black men trying to compartmentalize everything that's happening around them. There are certain scenes that are set up. There's one scene that is, I kid you not, a raid scene in these Cabrini Green apartment homes. And I'm not gonna lie, it is one of the most terrifying things that I've seen probably this year, because I honestly didn't know what was gonna happen. There's a scene that takes place at a funeral, and just the line of communication between these two men, two boys, that is just so aimless, but at the same time hopeful at the same time. It's just hard to really imagine and comprehend that they're having to have this conversation. So well done. And then even towards the end of the film, because the family that Malik and Dolores come from, like they do believe, they do pray. And it's kind of like with Eric's family, his dad, played by Laurel Howery, who does a really good job as Rosa Jason, like they've lost somebody too, and their outlook is more so focused and like to the numbers, like this is what I have to do. They don't have any choice of being hopeful with this. And so in tandem, Eric is very different than Malik, but they need each other. They love each other. But throughout the whole entire film, both of these characters fall victim to the circumstance around them. And it's just a question of whether or not they will find a reason to exist. They exist, they know they should, but it's a question now of like, what do they feel? What do they need? And what do they want? Such a great progressional story. But it feels so real. Like it feels like it's rooted in something very real and visceral. Now, This is directed by Minhal Bag. She did an amazing job directing this. The cinematography for this is so A1 because every small little moment, whether it's the two kids, there's a moment where the two kids go and step to the fence and they just say, I exist. And it's just focusing on one, focusing on, you never know that they're right next to each other. There's also framings of different moments. There's a moment where the two characters have an altercation in a school, and the way that it's done, you don't know what's really happening just because it's focusing so close on the actual person and how they're feeling. One of the most deep-cutted, well-shot moments in this film is actually right in their home, and it's filmed by, it's done by Journey Smollett's character Dolores and Blake Cameron James' character Malik. And it's after he just went somewhere, and she is having a moment where she realizes what could have happened to her son. And she has this communication, which is a real communication, where she's fighting everything in her to deal with the anxiety and the hurt and the pain of what happened. And he's trying to reconcile what is really happening, what he's done. And it's filmed so perfectly because it focuses home on them very well. The editing for this is edited really well. At times it's just so artistic. There's a moment that takes place in an art institute where two kids are like kind of going there, and it just feels like this levels of imagination. So it's kind of like there's this amazing relationship that's happening with the cinematography as well as the editing, that every single moment that you're going through these kids trying to dream, trying to be hopeful, trying to build imagination, and then dissecting to the reality and the scope of what's really happening to their lives and what's tearing them apart ultimately, emotionally and physically. The acting. Journey Smollett in this is playing a black mother that is basically just her and her mother trying to deal with these two kids alone. And she's working, she's pushing, she's doing everything she can. She knows her worth, she knows her rights, but the world doesn't matter to the world. And so what she has to kind of do is process what that means. And she can't. Like, there's so much life in her that it looks like it's just been sucked out. And that is a hard thing to do, to act, where you look at the character trying to balance their own emotions. And at the same time, it may be like a mannerism, it may be like a word, it may be a version of how she speaks versus how she speaks earlier in the film, but it's just so good. But the two young actors, and Guyan and Blake, they are everything. By the end of the film, I was almost in tears, honestly. And it's just, they go through so much that it cements what the name of the film is, We Grown Now, and what that actually truly means. It's rough. It's rough also having gone through life myself and knowing what it actually takes to even get to the age that I'm at right now, and how much of it is just a miracle and, prayerful thoughts and a lot of sacrifice. And this movie exemplifies that on so many different levels. One of the best films this year. This is being missed. You just don't know. And there's so many great films, so many great black excellence films this year. I mean, if you've seen Sing Sing, Nickel Boys, Exhibiting Forgiveness, this film, Hard Truths, The Piano Lesson, there's so many. And yet, I don't know if everybody is noticing how amazing of a year we're getting. But this movie, to me, was a 9.5 to a 10 out of 10. Highly recommend you go and check it out. I had an opportunity of talking to the editor, actually, about the film, and I'm going to be releasing out our interview with her, Stephanie Filio, who's the editor of this film. Definitely want you guys to go and check that out as well. I'll try to link that when it becomes available. But thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you guys later. Keep it locked. JVS, we ain't gonna stop. Peace, everybody.